Good evening, everyone. We're going to get started in about 4 minutes, but I want to remind you, if you want to take part of the interactive polling questions, you'll need to download the app Mentimeter. You can get it in the Apple Store or the iTunes Store or Google Play Store. Then you'll need to log that activity code, 657356, and the questions will automatically generate and you can participate. We really want your feedback tonight. This is new for us, so we're testing it out. So thank you for being our guinea pigs. And again, please download Mentimeter, the app Mentimeter. Six of you have answered. I know there's more in this room. Come on, because we can see as you log your answer, you'll see a little bubble. That lets us know we're being interactive. Thanks, Jen.
Test, test, test. Everybody hear me? Wave.
You're supposed to say clap
No?
hands. Can't answer that text right now. So tell us if he's on track. More people. 8 people.
I'm interested to see what business class discount is.
That's what we're flying
Well, it's a business class discount.
to Japan.
The business class is.
Where are you going?
I hope not.
Don't say that. Why don't you pay for us to have an upgrade?
So they just came in.
I don't know.
They just pulled in. Perfect. That's fine.
Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Grace Family Health and the Battle Creek Economic Development Forum. Please make yourselves comfortable and help yourselves to the light refreshments in the back of the room. We would also like to welcome everyone joining us on Facebook. Tonight, we're going to focus on economic development, including projects in progress and those under development in our city. We would also like to hear from local business owners, and we will have plenty of time to ask you questions and provide feedback. This town hall was designed to give you, our neighbors, our citizens, a more relaxed way to interact with the City Commission and the City Administration on those topics that are important to our community. Economic development is a particularly compelling topic as it is a key element of the community-based results that guide the city's priority-based budgeting efforts. Economic development, or economic vitality, as identified in our community results, is also included as a component of the city manager's goals as determined by the City Commission. By prioritizing economic vitality, we ensure that our time and resources are committed to helping grow our local economy. We have some specific objectives that we would like to reach with this town hall meeting tonight. Number one, we want to inform our neighbors about what is going on in economic development in the city of Battle Creek. We want to generate a sense of excitement and build on the positive momentum around economic development in our community. Thirdly, we want to give neighbors the ability to connect with resources, their elected officials, and information so that you can join in on what is happening in Battle Creek and offer feedback and ideas. Finally, by doing so, you can help inform future policy making and critical next steps. Tonight, we take questions from the audience as well as those who join us on Facebook Live. I invite all attendees to comment on Facebook, set up the microphone, or write your questions on index cards. If you're not able to get your question tonight, we will follow up with an answer. There are numerous economic development service providers in this room this evening. We hope all you will connect with them. At this time, I would like to turn it over to our city manager, Rebecca Fleury, and we'd like to also thank her for her efforts in organizing this event tonight, because it did take us a few months to really plan hard for it. So good luck, and take it away, Rebecca.
Thank you, Mayor, I appreciate it. I'm going to walk through our agenda in just a moment, but I really wanted to take this moment and introduce our city commissioners tonight. You've already heard from Mayor Benke, Vice Mayor Sherry Sophia, Commissioner Lynn Ward Gray, Commissioner Susan Baldwin, Commissioner Kate Flores, Commissioner John Griffin, Commissioner Jim Lance, Commissioner Chris Simmons. Tonight's agenda, we are going to be at a pretty quick pace. We have a lot of information we want to get through tonight. And so I want to just let you know, Mayor Benke gave us our welcome and introductions. Get to the right slide. And then we're going to have, I'm going to say a little overview on economic development in Battle Creek right now, and then I'm going to turn it over to our wonderful panel. I'll introduce them again, but this is Joe Soborowski from Battle Creek Unlimited, Ted Deering, who's the Assistant City Manager for Community and Economic Development, and John Hart, who's our Downtown Development Director. They're going to walk through a really great panel discussion with you about what's happening in the city. Then we're going to go over to business testimonials. We have invited businesses that are in the city of Battle Creek to share their experiences, both from the small business and larger business areas. Then as I said, we're trying a lot of new things tonight. This is being aired on Facebook Live, so questions are coming in live through Facebook. But again, we have the comment cards around the room, and we're going to be doing those polling questions as we move throughout tonight. We want this to be interactive, and really what the City Commission wants is to engage you and to gather your feedback around economic development, the topics we're going to talk about today. We will make sure to have public comment at the end, and then the Vice Mayor will share her closing remarks and wrap up the evening. Traditionally, economic development has been very narrowly focused on jobs and investment. But more and more we're finding that a broader definition and strategy is required to really see things move in a community. We are finding that we not only have to pay attention to jobs and investment, we also need to focus on education, housing, health and well-being, and overall quality of life. We think that this broader notion is showing itself in the strategies that are emerging in Battle Creek. Particularly around jobs, which we are going to focus on this town hall, but we want you to know there is a lot of amazing things happening around education, the transformational work being done at Battle Creek Public Schools, their career academies, and their early childhood readiness is a focus. Housing, we're seeing a lot of new things tonight. This is being aired on Facebook. See, it's new, so we're going to have some technology glitches, but that's okay. We can go with that. Tech team, am I okay to keep talking? Great. We're going to just keep going. We're seeing a lot of new housing options come online downtown, but we know we have work to do in the housing area, as well as placemaking, that quality of life, the culture of vitality. We need all of these things to have an economic development strategy that really moves Battle Creek forward. Right now, we see a lot of our traditional economic development efforts around districts, particularly the Fort Custer Industrial Park, as well as downtown. But as I just said, that work needs to broaden, and we're appreciative of all the partners that are in this room and some that are not in this room to help us make that happen. So we know that if we aren't successful in that catalytic site development downtown, paired with those placemaking efforts into a housing or residential investment strategy, we aren't going to be as successful. And those are happening, and I hope you hear that throughout our talk tonight. In addition, we know that the works, they do focus in the center, our urban core, but we're watching them expand into the neighborhoods that feed into the downtown, as well as other commercial corridors. So you'll hear us talk about district development as we go through tonight. Okay, when we go to our second polling question right now, there's going to be about a 20-second delay. So that's going to give you time, if you haven't downloaded the app, Mentimeter, do that now, because we're going to switch to polling question number 2. So please rank these economic development strategies in order of importance. Just going to give it a few minutes. Actually, a few seconds, to be honest with you, so we can keep moving. As you can see, as people vote, they're voting online, they're voting live from Facebook, and they're voting in this room. It looks like very little movement. I don't know. Education and housing is kind of battling it out there. But I think the good news is that everybody here and watching live know that we have to be successful in those 4 areas for a true economic strategy to work. So please watch for more things. Even though we're focusing on jobs tonight, you'll see a lot more activities surrounding the other things. It looks like jobs is going to remain in the first one. Thanks. I'm going to switch to the next slide. And again, there's just a bit of delay when we go back and forth from the polling questions. Traditionally, economic development in Battle Creek is primarily funded through public resources. A fair share of that support comes through the tax increment financing districts that the city of Battle Creek has. The Battle Creek, oops, let me go forward. Great. The Battle Creek TIFA, which surrounds the industrial park and the airport, is the primary source of funding for Battle Creek Unlimited and as the TIFA's contract administrator. BCU also administers the Brownfield Authority as well as the city's direct investment fund. The other significant TIF district we have in Battle Creek is the Downtown Development Authority. That's particularly surrounding the Central Business District. The City of Battle Creek provides administrative support through our small business development team to the DDA. But that's not the only source. TIF funding is not the only source of funding for economic development activities through BCU and the city. We also rely on our philanthropic partners, as well as state and federal grants and business contributions. The city also has 2 business improvement districts. We have the Dickman Road Business Improvement District. I should say that the city administers both the Dickman Road Business District as well as the Columbia Avenue Bid District. As I said, TIF districts and business improvement districts are not the only source of funding for economic development in the city. We have a host of wonderful other economic development service providers that have various sources of funding. We have our Chamber of Commerce that works through a membership due structure. The Visitors Bureau collects a countywide room tax to provide the services, and the Calhoun County Land Bank generates revenue by selling land and collecting a portion of those taxes generated by development. In addition, we've seen over the past couple of years, we have seen lenders such as Northern Initiatives come into the city to provide seed grant funds and charge interest on their loans to those that qualify. We also have seen some wonderful entrepreneurial support organizations in Battle Creek, such as Second Muse. Michigan Works is also one of what we consider an economic development partner, and they receive their support through the federal and state funds earmarked specifically for workforce development, which you can see is very important, as those participating today say jobs is the #1 priority for economic development. And of course, I can't again not mention our wonderful philanthropic partners that have been so supportive for our efforts in the city around economic development. Again, I said that we have a wonderful partner in Battle Creek Unlimited. They really have been historic in providing the support they have for the city of Battle Creek. They are known internationally for the work they've done in the Fort Custer Industrial Park. And I'm not going to take away the thunder because Joe's going to talk a lot about the exciting things that Battle Creek Unlimited is doing. But what I wanted you to show you is a snapshot of their strategic plan, which encompasses all those key components that we talked about for a successful economic development strategy. I think what we want to make sure that we let our community know is that we are all working together on those components that you're telling us are most important to move our economic development initiatives forward and to help our strategies emerge as we work towards that. I'm making sure my slides are switching. The city's economic development efforts are led by our small business development team, and you're going to hear a lot more about them from Ted and John. So we work to fill those gaps around small business needs. We work very closely with economic support organizations to make sure that anybody in the business cycle can get the quality customer service they need to be successful. So no matter whether you're at the discover, the launch, or grow phase, we've got team members to support you either through the city or through Battle Creek Unlimited. And I have touched on a lot of our partners, but I can't tell you that we couldn't be advancing this work without their help. And I'm really excited that most of them are here tonight. They're here to answer your questions. You can stop by their tables. So we're really proud to have an accredited Chamber of Commerce providing the business assistance to their members. The Visitors Bureau, we have a lot of people that don't think about the Visitors Bureau as an economic development driver, but they certainly are because tourism provides a huge economic impact for the greater Battle Creek area. Northern Initiative and Second Muse also worked with the city's small business development team as well as Battle Creek Unlimited to help businesses at various times in their cycle. And the Land Bank helps us put tax reverted properties back into productive use. Unfortunately, the Urban League could not be with us tonight, but they are also doing some exciting new programming around economic development in our minority neighbors. And so we hope that you reach out to them, and we have contact information on the slide behind me. And we'll be excited that we're communicating out all of the projects and efforts that we're making going forward, even after tonight. Okay, I'm going to switch now to a set of polling questions before I turn the microphone over to Joe Soborelski, the CEO of Battle Creek Unlimited. True or false question on this one? So far, overwhelmingly, the answer is true. Great. We're going to move to the next one. True seems to be the winner. I'm not going to tell you which is correct because Joe's going to talk about that. Okay, which is not a key growth sector to attract and retain jobs in Battle Creek? Remember, this is kind of a trick, which is not. Oh, the little bubbles are moving. Okay, we got about. We're just going to keep you waiting because I'm not going to tell you. We're going to let Joe answer the questions. Okay, we've gotten up to about 24, 25. Okay, let's go to the next one. Which of these is a bigger problem in Battle Creek? Which BCU and others are working to improve? right, looks like lack of participation in jobs is the winner. I think we have one more. Jessica? We do. Is economic development in Battle Creek moving in the right direction? So this one, I don't think there is right or wrong answer. What we want to make sure is that we're listening. And, so if what you're hearing tonight will tell you that it's not, then we have work to do. If we're close, that should be reflected. All right, we can switch. Thank you very much. The good news is there were a lot of yeses. There is work to do because we had some no's, and we will hear that, we'll take that back and work harder. Joe, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Well, thank you for all being here today. I hope everybody can hear me. Am I supposed to go over the polling questions or just kind of go into what's in progress? So I guess I want to take a moment here to talk a little bit about the polling and questions. Yes, there are incentives available for both large and small business, and we'll touch on this through here. I guess there really is no right or wrong answer to what isn't a strategy for economic development, but believe it or not, energy storage is a strategy of Battle Creek Unlimited. I guess you could kind of talk about some of the RFPs that we've done downtown really kind of fit into the hotel hospitality, so maybe that was a little bit of a trick question. And I would agree that the lack of labor participation rate in Battle Creek is kind of holding us back. Our labor participation rate lags behind both the state average and the national average, and if you were to equate it out numbers-wise, there's thousands of people sitting on the sidelines. And when you talk kind of in a high-level economic development perspective, that's things that national site consultants on the larger scale projects they look at. And, it can be an opportunity, but it also can go against us. So that's something that we're working with a lot of partners to address. And economic development, right or wrong direction, I believe we're moving in the right direction, but I would kind of caution that this is a long process. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. Some of the things that we're doing downtown, we've done because we're hearing from our large employers. As we're looking to attract employees to the area and grow our companies or bring new companies to the area, we need a comprehensive ecosystem on economic development. Companies need to have places to take their employers to when they're bringing customers to town. And so that's really kind of why we shifted a little bit at BCU to start focusing on some of the pieces downtown. And real quick, I'll talk about what's in progress. We have the Real Estate Improvement Fund. This was a $2 million grant from the W.K. Kellogg Foundation. This was really a grant that we piloted with both New Holland and Record Box to prove that in Battle Creek we are a market in transition. Cost of construction is here, valuations are here. We've got some old buildings that need a lot of love, and it takes additional capital. So this is intended to close that gap and look at it from the eyes of a developer. Why aren't these projects moving forward? Well, this is just another tool in our toolbox to help close the gap to induce development. Real quick on that, we've probably got 8 in the queue. We've got a total of 12 that we've received. So there's been a handful of those that have been conditionally approved, and we're working through the process to announce those. So I think you'd see some announcements here on the first round of Real Estate Improvement Fund dollars in October, hopefully. And those really focus on affordable housing in the downtown area, permanent and temporary jobs for low-mod individuals, and women, minority-owned businesses, and historical preservation. Additionally, we're kind of still sifting through our restaurant RFP. We've made a conditional award as I touched on us being a market in transition. We've committed to them. Now they are working to get all their other financial pieces together. That's a typical project. You're going to have multiple sources of income or sources, which is going to just prolong the process. We're very proud. Last year we received a grant from the Michigan Economic Development Corporation to position Battle Creek for UAS, more commonly known as drones. We have a huge asset in the W.K. Kellogg Airport that is underutilized. And these are jobs, this is an industry that's here, it's exponentially growing. It's not in a lot of markets, and a lot of markets can't really support where it's at in the stage of development. This is an industry that can support $70,000 a year jobs, and it's going to change the face of aviation, just like the electric vehicle and the autonomous vehicle are changing the automotive industry. Foreign trade zone, we're making a huge push on foreign trade zone users. It's a strategy to improve our community and bring additional jobs here. You'll hear from one of the new foreign trade zone users here later during testimonials. We're creating videos highlighting the Battle Creek talent to our outside networks. We're doing 10 videos. I know Battle Rock is out there. We've been working in conjunction with John and the city, so I'll let you guys talk about that. Handmat Brewing, along with Record Box, that's under construction right now. We're excited for those to launch and get open. The former Schranks building, we acquired that building, an unsafe building, and we're preparing it for housing developer that is in the works, not only right now looking at that site, but looking at an additional site downtown to possibly bring additional 50 units to downtown Battle Creek. Collab BC is a group, co-working group that's looking to locate in the Record Box. They are also actually a tech company too, Ministry Designs. The Collab BC is a rollout of that. The Tiger Room, you've heard a lot about that in the news recently. We're a food town with the Kellogg Corporation, Post, Prairie Farms. There's a whole history of food here in Battle Creek, and the Tiger Room is just that accelerator piece that we believe is going to help bring a lot of the pieces together for those second stage companies. The McCamley Hotel, still working to get that up to a DoubleTree standard, and really out in the industrial park, site readiness and the airport, getting that ready for future development. Business is moving at the speed of light, and we've just got to be ready. Also wanted to talk about, do I have a few more minutes? Northern Initiatives, Battle Creek Unlimited committed $1.2 million to Northern Initiatives. Thus far, we've contributed $600,000 to that. So that's in progress as well. It's been an amazing tool for this community. And kind of some of the things that are under development, you know, we got the Milton, the Record Box in New Holland. Those are three projects that really I want to bring back to why do projects take a while to get going once they're announced in Battle Creek. We're in a market in transition where cost of construction is high for a variety of reasons, labor shortages, and then the final product is being valued at a lower than cost of construction price, which creates a gap and creates a delay, and is why we have to be creative with incentives and other sources of funding, thus delaying the projects. Western Michigan College of Aviation is going through a huge expansion out at the airport. That's a $20-some million project, 60,000 square feet. And we've got Waco, who has been acquired by D-Moore Aero. They're erecting 75 to 80,000 square feet out at the airport. Again, nearly a $20 million project. Those are all underway. Those are all bringing additional jobs, bringing additional investment to our community.
Thanks, Joe. Remember, if you have questions for Joe, please put them on the cards so that we can get to them when we get to more of the question and answer period. Now I'm going to turn it over to Ted Deering.
Great, thank you. Good evening, everyone. John and I are going to double team this a little bit, but I'm going to talk a little bit about what's in progress from the city's perspective. And the city plays a couple of roles in economic development in our community. We certainly play a regulatory role, but we complement that with the work of a team of professionals who are working on small business in our community. And that small business team is part of a larger collaborative, a larger group of folks, many, again, as Rebecca indicated, who are in this room this evening, who are working hard to put together an ecosystem to support small business in our community. From a regulatory point of view, the city is responsible for planning and zoning in our community. We're responsible for code enforcement and inspections, and we're responsible for community development as well. We do our work district by district. As Rebecca mentioned a little bit earlier, we collaborate with partners like Battle Creek Unlimited in the downtown, which is one of our key development districts. But we also play a very important and critical role as a business liaison in our community between developers and investors and the folks that work in regulatory compliance for the city of Battle Creek. That's an emerging role for us, but an extremely important one. When we look at what's in progress, planning and zoning is working through an entire rewrite of our zoning ordinance to align that with our master plan. The idea there is to put zoning regulations in place that support our vision for economic development in our community and that eliminate barriers by making as many opportunities for investors by right as possible. And that's an important strategy in our community. We're collaborating with the MEDC and through the redevelopment ready community process. We've been doing some incredibly interesting programs and processes around pre-development to fill infill sites in the city of Battle Creek in and around the downtown with new development. For example, some of you may have heard about our efforts to reimagine what the Van Buren Street parking lot could look like between Battle Creek Central High School and the river. And we're going to release, and we are releasing, as a matter of fact, an RFP to developers to see who might be interested in bringing a unique mixed-use project to that particular site. We're currently in the process of adding a fourth member to our small business development team so that we can focus on data. It is important for small business owners to have the information they need to make informed decisions. You know, we have a wealth of data at City Hall through a variety of sources, including multiple ESRI licenses that give us data that can be very valuable to small business owners when they're making a decision about where to locate or what even business to be in. So it's critical data that we want to mine and make available to our potential developers and investors in this community. You know, we have been working hard to physically incubate businesses in our community. I think most of you are familiar with our BC Cargo shops, the kitchen at 80 West Michigan downtown. I think we've got some business owners here tonight who have taken advantage of those particular amenities. And we're working to build and expand upon that, some underutilized space at Kellogg Arena, for example, that can be used to complement projects like the Tiger Room to build up, say, food incubators in our community, particularly small businesses. And finally, let me just touch on our recruitment and retention efforts. One thing that we've been able to do in recent months is retention calls, and we plan to do over 200 retention calls over the next fiscal year or so. And it never really ceases to amaze us how appreciative Battle Creek business owners are to have somebody drop in to see how they're doing. In many instances, they say they haven't had that visit in years, or they perhaps never had a visit like that. And I think what it does when we do those retention calls is it sends a very strong message to this community that Battle Creek is serious about supporting small business. And I think for there, I'll turn it over to John and talk a little bit about what's under development.
Thank you, Ted. Yikes. Picking up where Ted left off in regards to the continuing efforts of placemaking and incubating businesses, some of what we found is that using the district development model, where you kind of look at the deficiencies within these corridors and districts and then try to backfill into the storefronts, many are vacant or older, challenging for new businesses to get started. We're using what we learned at the BC Cargo, which we launched 2 years ago, and then subsequently after the first year launched the kitchen, which Ted mentioned is 80 West Michigan. That's sort of a continuum of going from BC Cargo to a bricks and mortar, but it's been developed at a subsidized cost by the city of Battle Creek. We can keep rents low. We can then try to figure out how to move those individuals from that to a real bricks and mortar, a forever home, and we'll have a testimonial today, which you'll hear that that's about ready to occur. We've also then went into another area of incubating food businesses, because we find a lot of food businesses that can fit all over the city, so it's not just downtown, but it's out also in and amongst some of our 18 other business corridors, and that's with the Kellogg Arena. So we've taken another city asset and tried to put it to good use, and we've got a couple tenants in there now that are cooking out of that kitchen and then can go into bricks and mortar down the road. As Ted mentioned about attraction and retention visits, we learn an awful lot about our community when we go out and make those visits, and when we're talking to other people about coming downtown or into our districts. And two of the folks that you see up on the board, Jimmy John's and Bigby, those are two local folks that bought into these franchises and decided to locate downtown. It was pretty challenging in the spaces that they were put up against. Jimmy John's, for instance, there was a long kind of a wait for them to open. They went through a lot of environmental issues, very new building, but a lot of issues in order to get into that building. That was with the help of the land bank and a grant. We were able to access funds to help do that. We're going to continue to use some of those funding, that funding mechanism with environmental assessments in our upcoming work. So we're making another application through the land bank soon for that. Big B's is also one that was sort of struggling to get open in an existing space in McCamley Plaza. It's not unlike spaces we find throughout the community, such as in Old Lakeview, Calhoun Street, Capitol Avenue Southwest. And so we're going to be moving through those areas in the near future, and we are with we've done some development plans in the Old Lakeview area, where folks, the Slip Street exists, and there's two banks, what would have been sort of the village back in the day of Old Lakeview. And we've done some studies on that, and it's starting to get some traction. So we're going to continue to work on a district level throughout the community that way. Some of the things we're working on to support that is sub-area planning. And what that is basically taking an area and looking at those assets and strengths and weaknesses and then trying to program around that. And we're working on the area of West Michigan, just west of downtown, where Pastor McCoy's working on his youth village. So we're working below and down to Dickman Road in that area. And we're also working on the northern end of Gogwak Lake. So it's a very interesting 350-acre lake that we have 5 minutes from our downtown. It's a great asset and something we want to see better expressed. We're also, as Ted said, becoming development ready. So one of the mechanisms behind that is going through a complete zoning rewrite. And as we go through that zoning rewrite, we want to create the best possible policy that we can that would be supportive of development. In those areas, we're doing a couple study areas also, Columbia Avenue and Columbia/Capitol Avenue, where the four corners intersect up by the northern end of Gogwak Lake. Capitol Avenue Southwest, which Meacham Hill down to Horrocks, also looking at what could that area sustain, what should it have in the next 10, 15 years. And Main Street east and southeast of City Hall. So corridors, entrances in the community. And with that, I'll just mention if Ted would like to talk a little bit about the river restoration, and if not.
Yeah, just quickly too, and I think we'll talk maybe a little bit more about this later on, but one of the more ambitious projects that we're looking at is the naturalization of the channelized version of the Kalamazoo River in the downtown. So there's an opportunity there with some of the changes that we've seen in our community to rethink what that river looks like and how it could contribute to the overall economic vitality of our downtown. You know, naturalizing that river has tremendous environmental impacts, favorable environmental impacts for our community, but also economic development impacts too, because it allows us to reimagine what all of that space looks like south of the railroad tracks up to Dickman Road, and then the old Kmart site, for example, and some of the surrounding properties, and how that could become a vital and vibrant part of our downtown. So it's a project that we're excited about. It's going to take a lot of work, but we do have some state and federal partners who are already investing in the project, so we're excited about where that can go.
Thank you both. I appreciate that. We're going to go to polling questions. Hopefully, if you were listening closely, you should be able to answer these. Not this one. This is totally on you. How often do you go downtown? Totals. Okay, in the essence of time, I'm liking that everybody goes down several times a week. Let's go to the next one. After meeting your basic needs, how would you prioritize spending your income? Okay, dining and entertainment is our early lead. Recreation just overtook shopping. Okay, not anymore. Now it did again. Oh, come on, you shoppers. Okay, dining and entertainment. Next one. In your neighborhood, can you walk to all services you need in 20 minutes? All right, so as we talk about redevelopment-ready communities and the walkability, we know that we have some work to do. There is an aggressive program out there as far as that 20-minute timeline, so you'll see more about that as we talk about district development going forward. I think we have one more. Okay, this is one where you have to type in a word. So you listen to us talk about a lot of development projects between Joe and Ted and John. Which one would you like to learn more about? Great, you all were listening because I see a lot of the projects, most of the projects that we had up there. Thank you very much. So you're going to have more fun with polling questions in a little bit. Right now, what we'd like to do is bring up some of the business owners we have in Battle Creek to talk to you and our audience out there about their experiences in Battle Creek. So John, Ted, Joe, and I are going to move, and we're going to invite our business testimonial friends up. And then between John and Joe, we will introduce them one at a time. So if our friends from the business world would come on up, we will trade you places.
Which ones are me first?
Okay, I have the pleasure of introducing Eric Stewart from Stewart Industries, Cody and Caitlin Newman from Restore 269, and Shannon Visker from Rosler.
What are we supposed to do?
Well, Joe, you want to give me a caveat? Because I'll talk about anything.
We didn't go through this detail. So, both of you, some of you have been in Battle Creek for a while. Some of you are newcomers to the development world. Just, you can share the microphone amongst yourselves, but sharing your experience and your background of, when you started and your experience with economic development, Battle Creek Unlimited, the city, all of the above. And you can pass it amongst yourself.
Can I go first? So Rosler came to Battle Creek in 1999. We have foreign ownership, German owner. BCU was very integral in bringing us here. We knew we wanted to be between two of our competitors, but we weren't quite sure where. They sold us on Battle Creek, and they've helped us grow from 2 people to 120 people, which is where we're at now. 2 expansions, integration of competitors that we purchased, and kind of that's where we're at now.
Cool, thank you. Eric Stewart, Stewart Industries. Stewart Industries has the pleasure of being 19 years young, and the landscape was a little different when we started. What's consistent is we were supported by BCU, and we're still supported by BCU today. We were incubated for about 2 years, warehouse and office space. It allowed us to get a really good start. There was no difference between the incubation space that we used and a large business. So there was some varied economies of scale that we had to overcome, but BCU has always been an asset. We're still in the Fort Custer Industrial Park area. We sit in the cul-de-sac with Gallagher and some other companies. And, you know, I travel a lot. And I just want to say that from a business perspective, a small business, large business, I don't care what size you are, we have a very valuable asset in this community. Sometimes we take it for granted. Out in Fort Custer, I go to industrial parks and none are as beautiful, well-maintained, or well-managed as what we have. It's a great place to invite customers. They're wowed when they come, which helps us sell our products in the fort. It helps, you know, the walkable space and things of that nature for our associates. They tell me that a lot. But the real rubber hits the road when you can create a larger business out of a small business and get the supports from the city and BCU and working together around these economic development plans. It all comes together. You can't have a healthy Fort Custer without a healthy downtown, and vice versa. You know, the tax base is important, the job creation is important, and the new technologies are important too. So some of these ideas that you've seen up here today are extremely important for the development of Battle Creek. They don't happen overnight. I couldn't have told you 19 years ago that we'd be doing the same things we're doing today. And in the next couple of months, we'll be launching a foreign trade zone, which is going to create more jobs for Battle Creek and get that going. We got to keep that economic engine primed, and I'm just glad that we can be a part of it at Stewart Industries. That's enough, Gallagher.
My name is Caitlin Newman, and this is Cody Newman. We are a husband and wife team specializing in building restoration and development. We moved back to Battle Creek, it's our hometown, about 3 years ago, and we made downtown our home. And we purchased our first building and reactivated the Rad Eye building, which is has residential and commercial, and then about a few months later, we jumped right into another building that we rebranded the Record Box, and that will be a mixed-use commercial building.
So with that, that was a project that like Joe had mentioned, similar to a lot of other projects downtown Battle Creek. The cost to renovate it was significantly more than the appraisal. It's a $2 million project that appraised at $1.2 million. So you either have to have $800,000 cash to put down, which I'm going to surprise you guys we didn't, or you had to be able to work really hard to get through different incentives, through tax credits, the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, Oprah with the city, BCU had different incentives, working with the real estate development and the brewery incentive, putting all those together, and then putting together all the construction plans and details to make the dreams a reality. It was a really extensive process. There were a lot of hurdles in the way that were unexpected. The longest government shutdown ever delayed the tax credits. In the middle of the MEDC, we had some hiccups as well. But we made it all through that, and we're excited to say that we are about a month away. So we're hoping right around Halloween we will be open. The building will be open. The brewery will follow. They have a few months of testing with the state, but hopefully the first of the year they'll be operational. And CoLab BC and the Record Box Loft will be open in a month.
So we just want to say how vital programs like this are to these projects. 3 years ago when we first moved back to Battle Creek, a lot of these programs were not in place, and we're so thankful that Battle Creek Unlimited is a vital partner in that, because we would not be able to do these large-scale developments and restore these important assets with historic preservation. These old buildings are so important to Battle Creek's history, and we're just excited to be a part of the momentum happening here in Battle Creek.
Those guys are being so modest. You know, we talk about the services and assets that the city and BCU provides, but don't get it twisted. You can pass downtown and see this husband and wife team out there scraping that building, painting that building, working together to make sure it happens. And I don't think a lot of folks that don't own a small business know that that happens. These things just don't pop up overnight. You know, I see my friends at Cafe Rica. They were doing the same thing. They're on their grind every single day, and it's hard in the beginning. My friends at Raffinese, they built that with their hands while they had a job. And now they have a restaurant and a thriving business and things of that nature, and we need to be able to support these folks within our community versus not supporting them and then complain when they're not there at the end of the day. And I'm not just saying that for the accolades. I'm saying that because that's 100% true. This town takes us all to work cooperatively. All these economic development plans are great plans, and it's a great summary of what could happen, but it needs all of us as citizens to support that and give it the effort that it deserves and hold everybody accountable for their parts. That's what the key to this whole thing is. It's not a one-way street. It's a symbiotic relationship with small business, city government, economic developers, and the like. And then we need to hold the state accountable. So nobody's going to help us if we don't help ourselves, and I think that's the most important part of economic development and small business. You can clap for that.
All right. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Shannon. Thank you, Cody and Caitlin. Thank you for your participation.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Got a couple more folks coming up here. And so our journey continues with small business, and what we wanted to do was focus on how a small business might develop in the city from concept all the way through bricks and mortar, and then also how a first-time developer might also get started in downtown Battle Creek or anywhere in Battle Creek for that matter. And we've got LK Ventures here with Jeff and Sarah Versickle. And then we've got Cafe Rika here with Jackson and Tristan Redhoff, right? Okay.
Go first. How you doing, everybody? I'm Jeff Versickle. This is my wife, Sarah, from LKV Ventures. So we aren't from Battle Creek originally. 4.5 years ago, I took a job at Kellogg, and we moved out here. Excuse the throat, by the way. Sorry, a little sick. But we moved out here, and I just wanted actually a place downtown. And I was looking for apartments downtown. And there was nothing that I could find. The only apartments that were right downtown within walking distance was the Tower, which had like a 9-month waiting list to get an apartment. And it was, I remember thinking it was such a strange thing. It was a beautiful city, and there was jobs, and there was nowhere to live. And I ended up having to move down to some apartments off Beckley Road. Oh, I'm sorry, not close enough? Yeah, is that better? Does that sound better? Oh, that's so much. Okay, yes, thank you for that. Yeah, so we ended up moving into an apartment off Beckley Road because there was nothing downtown. And after, being at Kellogg for about a year or so, probably 4 more people I knew started at working downtown, and also ran into the same thing as I did and said, hey, I was just looking for an apartment downtown, but there was nowhere to go, so I ended up moving to Portage or Gull Lake or Marshall. So, at that point I said, well, this just doesn't make any sense. I'm, in business. We should have some apartments downtown. There's buildings all over the place. And I just reached out to the city with a generic email that I think said something like, hey, I would be interested in putting downtown apartments in, but I have no idea what I'm doing or who to talk to. So they put me in touch with John Hart, and through then we started on a journey of actually trying to be able to get something in place. And we identified a building. It's the Hair Shed. I think it was they sold it, the owner had owned for 40 years. We went through a whole lot of obstacles in identifying funding sources, as people have talked about, and trying to manage all the complexities of an old infrastructure and construction costs that couldn't make it work within a financial plan. So through a lot of these different programs that existed and in working with the city and many people along the way, we've actually closed on the building in May and have a plan in place and are working on some final kind of grant funding to be able to start construction. And we assume we'll be able to complete in the early 2020 timeframe to have some new apartments added downtown Battle Creek and a new commercial space in an updated building, old historic building right downtown. So it's been an incredible journey, and John asked me to sum up, 3 years of work in 5 minutes, so that's about all I got. But hopefully that just gives some appreciation for, just somebody getting started and looking something to do. The city just, to me, has so much opportunity, and if you get the right people working towards a common goal, I think there's a whole lot that we can unlock in this city.
All right, hey everybody, I am Jackson Bredoff. I am Tristan Bredoff, and we are co-owners of Cafe Rica. And if you don't know, we're at 80 West Michigan in the kitchen, and we're a coffee shop. But we started probably 3 years ago selling coffee online that we just imported from Costa Rica, where our mother is from. And we just started there. Started with a small amount of money, and we kind of grew up from there. We had a big problem of how to get people to taste our coffee, so we kind of did some research, and we looked in the Battle Creek area at the time. Tristan was living in Grand Rapids, I was in Battle Creek, and there wasn't really any food incubator programs in Battle Creek yet. So we had to reach out to Kalamazoo, and we found a really great one, which is called the Can Do Kitchen, and it's actually where we met one of our biggest fans, big mentor, Jeff Grog. And so we did that, developed one of our products, moved back to Battle Creek, and by happenstance, I was in the Chamber of Commerce, and Kara just came out and was like, hey, you're the coffee guys. I got a great opportunity for you. And it ended up being BC Cargo. And BC Cargo really was a pilot program. There's a lot of bumps at the very beginning, but we finally got open, and we just kind of went from there.
Yeah, and so I quit both of my jobs in Grand Rapids, moved back home, and me and Jack went into BC Cargo late June of last year. And so we were determined, we saw a hole in the market, and we decided, let's open up every single day, because that's something that, A, we could not afford to not do, and we saw a lot of people wanting to do something on like a Saturday or Sunday. So that was one of our goals. We then found out really quickly that the market liked our product, and so we were in a hurry to find a building to move into. One of the problems in Battle Creek happens to be that there aren't many move-in ready buildings, and as a tiny business, I would say, we did not have the capital to do so. And that's when the Small Business Development Fund and John Hart came to us and said, hey, we have this idea about filling the 80 West Michigan, the Sweet Bee location with 2 small businesses that are food-based, and they called it The Kitchen, and they helped put on the build-out, supplied most of the equipment that was universal between the two, and we had to supply the rest that was more unique to our business. And ever since February, we have been doing the same exact thing we did at BC Cargo, taking advantage of the opportunity that the Small Business Development Fund had provided, and building a clientele, and just, like Mr. Stewart said, grinding it out. That has actually led to a lot of positive. I would say a lot of people in this room have helped contribute to our success, and we are very thankful for that. And since you guys have supported us so much, we're actually planning to announce Thursday our next step, which is going to be our Forever Home.
And just like Tristan was saying, this really couldn't have been made possible without the help of the Small Business Development Fund. They really, the subsidized rent in the kitchen allowed us to reinvest nearly all of our money back into our business to help propel us forward. And programs like the micro loan, and we got a small grant from BCU last winter, helped us get some of our equipment that we needed. And one of the biggest things as a resident of Battle Creek for so long was there's nothing to do downtown on the weekend. Everywhere's closed. So yesterday we had our 3-year anniversary party, and we had 70 tickets come through our restaurant, coffee shop on a Sunday. The street was packed, and it was a great sign, and that's just been one of our passions, was to get bodies downtown on a weekend, and it's happening. When we first started, when we were open, there was only 2 or 3 businesses open on Sundays. It was us, the Pancake House, and Clara's, and now there's probably 7 or 8. And so it's just moving in the right direction, and it takes time and it takes support from everybody, but we're going the right way.
Thank you for our panel. There was a question that came up about what is BC Cargo, and BC Cargo is a pop-up marketplace that's in cargo containers at a very low rent for the summer season, so people can try out their business at a low cost, low risk. And then I would also like to mention, shout out to a community development team at the City of Battle Creek for CDBG funds to help fund the 3 apartments. And also the land bank that helped fund an environmental on the subject buildings.
I forgot my shout out.
No problem. All right, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, while we're transitioning again, I'll ask the panel to come back up, and we're going to do some polling questions. While we have a little break, while that comes up, I am going to turn over my moderator duties to Commissioner Lynn Ward Gray, who's going to take us through the rest of our town hall this evening. So once we get through the polling questions, it'll be all yours, Commissioner Gray. Okay, so you had to be paying attention earlier about the river naturalization project to be able to answer this question. Okay, I'm going to take that as an overwhelming yes. Thank you. Next one, please. This is a sliding scale, so on your app, you can move that. Like those little pony races at the carnival. You're shooting your squirt gun. Okay, please know we get all of these results, and we'll be sharing them not only with the commission, but with our staff and our teams to make sure that we use the feedback that we're getting tonight. We have one more, Jessica? 2 more. Okay. Thank you, Jessica. Next one shows we have a little work to do. Wow, that's pretty even. Great, we talked a lot about a lot of exciting things tonight. We'll make sure that we work to get that message out more broadly. Okay, Commissioner Gray.
And thank you, Rebecca. Can everybody hear me? Yes.
Try now.
Ask for a little assistance over here. Testing. Whoa. There we go. So it is my pleasure to lead us through the Q&A segment of our town hall. As a commission, we decided on 3 goals, objectives in April of this year. and one of those was community engagement. And under community engagement, conducting town halls annually would be one of our efforts to improve community engagement. The mayor then asked for a subcommittee to work with staff to prepare for this town hall. And that is myself, Commissioner Kate Flores, as well as Commissioner and former Mayor and Vice Mayor Susan Baldwin. Somehow, since I hold a town hall annually, I got to do this job. So, this is a City Commission town hall, so I was volunteered for this Q&A segment. The committee and I invite you to submit your questions, and I know some of you have been doing that already, or ask by coming to the microphone that's here in the middle of the room, through Facebook Live, which we have received several questions that way as well, whichever is comfortable. My fellow committee members will be collecting those. You've seen Commissioner Flores walking around and grabbing those from you, and review them for themes, topic areas, and then we'll get to as many of them as we can. Because we are on Facebook Live, we ask that you please speak clearly into the mic, so not only those who are here in the room can hear you, but also those who are tuning in through Facebook Live. And don't forget, I want to just ask you to start working on the evaluation that was on your chair along the way, especially what topics you'd like to hear at any of our future town hall meetings. We would love to get that feedback overall about tonight as well as those future topics. I want to thank the city staff for all of their work and thank all the community partners that are here today and businesses. Please take advantage of talking with them, the opportunity to connect with them before you leave today, and of course, thank you for being with us today as well. We have some polling questions, I think, that were submitted by the city commissioners to get us started. Those questions were informed. Is that now or later?
We already did those.
We did those already, okay. So, we will move right in to our questions.
Commissioner Gray, can I just interrupt you just for a second?
Yes.
I just want you to know that what you're hearing in the back is we're translating this into Spanish live. So that's why you're hearing a little bit of background noise, but so we have people who don't speak English as their primary language, and so they're doing a live translation. So thank you for bearing with us. It's the first time that we're working through this, but we're very appreciative of not only our sign language interpreters, but our Spanish interpreters as well, so thank you.
Thank you for that clarity. I will ask my fellow committee members, did I miss anything? All right, here we go. We have, of course, starting right off, a theme that's going here about transportation. These came to us from Facebook Live, a couple of questions around the city cab service ending. And so I will ask both questions. I'll turn it over to staff who can kind of fill in the answers here. One had to do with, can we attract Uber or Lyft to Battle Creek or in Battle Creek? And then the other one had to do with, was the city aware that a number of patients leaving the hospital at all hours who were utterly reliant on city cab operation, how can we implement a night bus route and then kind of talk about what options there are and maybe talk a little bit about BC Go.
All right, well, thank you for that question. That's a very, very good question. Let me hear what the first part of that was again real quick, and I'll address that first.
It was relating to Uber and Lyft, can we attract them in Battle Creek?
So great question, and I think, you know, as disappointed as we are over the fact that the cab company cannot continue to provide service in Battle Creek, it does create an opportunity for private ride-shared companies like Uber and Lyft then to enter this market. Lyft has had a presence in this market, a minimal presence, and we do hope, because we have a wide variety of transportation needs in the city of Battle Creek, and we're going to need a variety of providers to solve all of the transportation issues that people face in our community. And so we are very hopeful then that those companies will take advantage of this opportunity and have a stronger presence in our market. We're going to do everything we can to reach out to them to make that invitation. And we do think that there is a viable market here and that they will have a more significant presence going forward. Okay, and then the second part of that question.
Other options for patients that
Yeah,
were
and
reliant on city cabs, as
Yeah.
well as implementing a night bus route.
Right. So, as some of you may be aware, Battle Creek Transit has tried to respond in a very short time frame to the challenges that we face, again, with city cab closing. I think there was a component of that question, were we aware? We are learning now a little bit more about their passenger load and what that looks like. Unfortunately, we weren't necessarily aware. And city cab, this is not necessarily a move that city cab wanted to make. Unfortunately, business costs resulted or forced them to make this decision, so we didn't have a lot of lead time to respond to this, but we have instituted a new service, a premium service, using our teletransit capacity in the existing market, and I want to give a lot of kudos to our drivers who have stepped up and said, hey, we are happy to work more hours, we're happy to work on Sundays, we're happy to staff more vehicles in the evening, et cetera, to try to pick up some of this demand. So we put together a service to try to capture some of that. Again, there are other alternative service providers in the market, like Equitas, for example, and others that use special services funds, who I think can also help fill a little bit of that gap. We do need the private ride-sharing companies to come in and pick it up as well. But we're doing everything we can right now to expand our service to pick up some of those rides. And I would encourage anybody, you know, if you're concerned, if you've got an issue, and we've had these phone calls, give us a call at City Hall. Absolutely give it a call down to Transit, because I can tell you a handful of examples just in the last week where folks have had transportation issues related to this closure that we have been able to solve for them by just informing them about what the transportation options are in our community. I don't know that we've caught them all, because we haven't gotten all those phone calls, but the people that are calling, we usually can come up with a solution.
I'd just like to add something on the ride share, the Uber and the Lyft. You know, Lyft, as Ted said, is in this market. You know, it's a little thing that you can do. I've taken it a couple times, but the more that we utilize it, the more that it'll populate and the more drivers you'll get. So if there's something as simple as, you know, waking up on a Sunday, even though you don't need to take Lyft, and you want to go down and get a coffee at Cafe Rica, and you can manage it, I encourage you to do that, because the more we do that, the more it'll populate those ride-share services.
Thank you for those answers. I will pause here to ask if there's anyone in the audience that wants to step to the mic and ask a question. Otherwise, I will continue with the questions that are written. All right, we're going to keep it moving. From Facebook Live, are there any plans for the smaller areas of our city, Verona, Lakeview, or Urbandale?
Yeah, I'm going to turn this over to John. That's what we often refer to as district development, which is a core part of our work. I'm going to let John comment on that a little bit.
All right, could you, the specific ones that were mentioned? I know
The
Urbandale.
specific ones that were mentioned were Verona, Lakeview, and Urbandale.
Right, so going back to my comment on the old Lakeview and the sub-area plan on Gogwak Lake. So for instance, that's two different studies that we're going to do, and these are not studies just throwing stuff out there to see what works. It's actually doing the work to change the zoning and to prescribe for the new growth so that we can be development ready. So the basic answer is yes, we're conducting somewhere between 3 and 5 sub-area plans, part of the zoning rewrite and plus of our part of our own initiative. And then we are mapping the districts with our new tech person. We're going to map each district and then try to come up with plans, sub-plans ourselves for each one of the districts, and there's about 18. Some of them are just a crossroad, some of them are corridors, some of them are as big as Urbandale.
Thank you. This is a Facebook Live question as well. This is a common question that I received. Why is the city more concerned about downtown than any other part of the city?
Take a stab at that a little bit. And I know I flew through a lot of the information, but what we have been learning, with some help from our philanthropic partners, is we've been studying other successful strategies, economic development strategies from all over the nation. And you're right, we're a big city, 44 square miles. But what we've learned in all of these cities like Chattanooga and Pittsburgh and these other communities that are starting to see revitalization is they did, and they did start with revitalizing their urban core, which is why downtowns were created. It was that center hub where businesses flourished. And we got away from that, and now we're coming back to that, because we know, and I think even Joe mentioned it, is that we hear from all of our companies and businesses that we have to have a strong downtown to support their customers and their employees. But we know it can't stop there. We have to connect the neighborhoods to the downtown, and that's where the district development comes in, so that we're creating, again, I call it that bicycle hub or that spoke, that everything's connected to the downtown and we're building out. But it's not that we're not paying attention to the rest of the districts. We're just trying to be involved in targeted approaches, but please know that there's a lot of other things going on around the city. We just know that we have to start with the core catalytic site developments downtown. We need to partner with those other things that make a comprehensive economic development strategy. We need residential options. We need place-making options. You've seen a lot of uptick in our events in art around this area. We've got wonderful partners at Lila Arboretum and BMAMS and all of those exciting events that are happening, Cruise the Gut. Those are all part of culture vitality and sense of place. That's that placemaking part. So we need all of those components to be moving like cogs in a wheel for us to be successful around economic development. Did you want to add?
Excellent, thank you. We, as a commission, wanted to dedicate a bulk of this town hall to question and answer, so we're going to, as I said, get through as many of these as possible, and this is going to make up the entire end of our town hall. We appreciate those who submitted questions ahead of time. This one came ahead through Facebook. With the consistent loss of business to Kalamazoo, what plans are being taken to recoup new business? And then what are the future plans for development to the mall, as well as downtown Battle Creek, which I think we heard a little bit about earlier today. So maybe we'll focus on the question regarding future development of the mall, as well as the first question.
Yeah, I can start with the first question, I guess that's probably very, very timely considering some of the recent news with Graphic Packaging. I can tell you we've got an attraction strategy that is targeted towards new industry 2.0, 3.0 of our industry sectors in Battle Creek. We're a food, we're an automotive community, automotive supply community, aviation, defense. And I can tell you, yeah, we've lost some industry, but history tells us that those industries are declining. We take a look back 45 years ago, and the Fort Custer Industrial Park was started to diversify out of one industry for the city of Battle Creek. And I can tell you the Fort Custer Industrial Park is thriving right now. There's over 13,600 employees. The companies are growing, they're diversifying, and it's a healthy base out there. So we will have companies come, we will have companies go, but we've always got to be looking out for the next best industry. That's why we're trying to position ourselves with UAS and drone, to position ourselves for industries that aren't declining. And I can tell you also, automation, we talked about labor force participation rate, unemployment rates. Unemployment rates are historically low in the United States, not just in Battle Creek. Automation is here. It's going to ramp up. It's going to mean higher dollar investments with lower job numbers. We just have to keep that in mind.
With regard to the mall, that is a bit of a unique animal. It's a unique challenge in the fact that we're not dealing with necessarily just filling square footage. We're dealing with basically a seismic shift in the whole paradigm around retail sales, nationally as well as regionally and locally. The mall is, there are a variety of property owners involved at the mall. The anchor stores were owned individually by the stores who occupied those spaces, and then the mall itself, the rest of the mall, is owned by a different development group. And they are struggling a little bit with their coordination on how they move forward, because they have got to come to a common understanding about what their retail strategy was going to be. And I think we have to be realistic about the mall and the fact that there are 70, 80,000, 100,000 square foot anchor facilities out there that traditionally have been used for retail, and retail does not occupy that kind of space going forward. So we are in constant contact with the mall ownership, as well as representatives from real estate companies who are working on the former anchor stores there, about what a strategy might be and how they might fill that space. And they're doing a good job of aggressively going after uses that we don't traditionally think of as mall uses, entertainment facilities, office space, and a variety of other, again, non-traditional mall spaces, and having some luck, at least in the initial conversations, but we just don't have anything concrete at this point yet. And again, we work with the developers, we have conversations with them, but they're still really in the process of deciding what the future of that space actually looks like. And I think we all agree at this point, it's not necessarily going to be the traditional retail environment that we have seen in the past. And so while that transition takes place, we're going to have to be probably a little bit more patient as a community than we'd like to be around that space, but we are making some progress, and it's at an ideal location, and it will have a viable future going forward. It just won't look the same as it has in the past.
Excellent. Again, I will invite you to the mic. If I start to see somebody work their way that way, okay. I will pause from the written questions and allow them an opportunity to ask. Your question, sir.
Hi there. I have two questions. One's kind of a follow-up on an earlier question that was asked about, I think you called them developmental areas. And one of the things that was asked was about the areas of Verona and Urbandale. And we hear a lot of talk about Lakeview and the areas leading to Lakeview, but you didn't answer anything about Verona and Urbandale. So I'm going to do a follow-up to that. My first question is, what are the city's plans for the north side of the city?
So the easy question is, or easy answer is, we have to start somewhere. So we have chosen a couple spots that are based on modeling the zoning. So the ones we've chosen are near centers, which some folks would say are slightly blighted. So we need to go after those areas. They're wide open spaces full of vacant land. We can model new zoning practices in those areas without sort of getting overly involved in a place that's already constructed. So when I said Old Lakeview, that's someone's already interested in that. There was a conceptual designs. When we talk about that other part between Horrocks and Meacham, there's a lot of sort of uses that aren't sort of working together in those areas. And so we can model that area, and then we can use that in other areas like Capitol Avenue Northeast, which is headed towards Verona. So we chose one where there sort of would be a pent-up demand. We can model it, and then once we get that zoning right there, we can take what we've learned there and move it to another place that's similar in nature. The same thing headed out towards the Arboretum on West Michigan, although it won't be all the way out to Urbandale at this point. When we model over on Main Street, we can take what we've learned on Main Street, modeling that zoning to something that looks like it might fit on West Michigan. So it's not prescriptive for every space that it's going to look exactly like the other one, but what we do learn, we can model that in another area. So we chose some areas that have a lot of more increase in blight concerns from the community, that they want to see things done, that they're negatively impacting the surrounding areas. And what we learn from there, we'll model it in areas that are sort of doing better.
So in a nutshell, not yet.
Well, it's not yet. We have to develop the tools in order to use them in those spaces.
My second is in relation to new industries. I don't know if most people know, but we have a tremendous, for lack of a better word, I'm going to call it an IT infrastructure in Battle Creek with the Federal Center. 30 years ago, it was the world's largest database. Today, we have a cyber mission out in Fort Custer. We have tremendous assets to build from for the IT infrastructure, and yet I've never heard any word on springboarding off from either the Federal Center, which is huge. I mean, I think the Federal Center, if we include all of its tenant agencies there, might be one of the largest employers in Battle Creek. Yet there appears to be no spin-offs from that. There should be. And the new cyber mission. If you want to look where the future is going, look at cyber warfare. That is huge. And what's going on there, and that's people intensive. It's not machine intensive. You're not going to automate those tasks. They might go to India, but you're not going to automate them. So what are the city's plans for springboarding off from either the Federal Center and/or the cyber mission that's out at Fort Custer? Thank you.
I'll take that one.
Thank you, Mr. Jones.
First of all, those are great points. The cyber mission, actually a drone set mission at the Air National Guard, and the Federal Center. It wasn't long ago, years ago, that the Air National Guard lost the A-10s, and the Air Guard was really not in a good position. I can tell you that Battle Creek Unlimited, in partnership with the city, through Battle Creek Unlimited, we engaged a group from DC called the Roosevelt Group, who has helped us really position, along with the Air Guard, for those new mission sets. And I talked about the UAS initiative that we've starting to position ourselves for Battle Creek. Everything you just mentioned is why we're going after UAS. We have fiber in the ground that's unheard of for a community of our size, really in the ground when we did. I think it was in the late 80s, early 90s. They forged ahead of everybody. But UAS, basically drones, large, small, we're really positioning ourselves for military and large, and in the commercial sector, it not only flies itself, but the most important thing is it has a lot of data. Once it lands, there's a data download, and Battle Creek can support that. You take the asset of the airport, you take the asset of the Air National Guard, the personnel, and the Federal Center. That's why we're going after the UAS, and really we started that initiative last year. It's going to be slow, it's going to be expensive, but it's what we're trying to position ourselves for.
Can I add to that just a The timing of that question is very good. Just earlier today, as a matter of fact, we had our quarterly kind of joint base stakeholders meeting with the military. And you asked the question, what is the city's plans to address this? But it was very interesting to listen from representatives from the DLA today, as well as from both of our guard bases, about how they would like to open up their facilities and their spaces and their expertise around cyber activity and other areas of their particular expertise, to invite the community in to learn from them as well. So even our partners in this endeavor in our community are willing to say, hey, we've got space in our building and we have expertise. How can we leverage that in this community to grow other sectors and other potential businesses? So they have come to the table and said, hey, this is our plan on how we might make this happen. So we just need to partner with them effectively to get to that point.
Excellent. So our next question, also from Facebook Live, is what are we doing to reach out to the African American and Potawatomi communities regarding the river restoration? There is a large amount of history there. Before you answer that question, I have a similar question, kind of along those lines. If the channelization of the river is reversed and that area is turned back to natural flow, how can we restore good faith and have reparations for Black or poor individuals who were originally displaced? So it's kind of a question along the lines of that project.
I'm going to take the second part. I'm sorry, I was running. Okay, so Ted's going to take the first part. I'm sorry, I was running questions. There is still a lot of dialogue to be had around the river naturalization process, and we are doing our best to engaging all of the stakeholders around that. You know, when we first started talking about that, we were approached by BC Whitewater. We had a wonderful opportunity. We have two beautiful rivers, and they want it to be opened up more for recreational use, but we have to remember that the concrete channels were put in for a reason, so that the downtown does not flood. And so we don't ever want to put that in jeopardy. So when you talk to engineers, they're like, well, those concrete channels have to stay. But what the Army Corps of Engineers is telling us is that we're nearing the end of life of those concrete channels. So what are our options? We need to explore all of our options, including having those conversations. So I can tell you, when we first started talking about that with our engineers, they're like, no. But now what they're talking about, and what we've learned through the conversations that keep broadening, is that there is a potential that that would be all right if you widened the river. So you don't just take out the channels, you must widen the river. So then, we're like, right, Dickman Road's right there. So MDOT is like, well, maybe we could shift Dickman over to allow the river to be widened. So these are the conversations we're having, and then we also do need to engage all of the native cultures that we've had in Battle Creek to make sure we understand their expectations, make sure we understand the history before we move forward with anything like that. You know that we will have to tap into state and federal resources to do a project of this nature, and they have a very robust environmental review process, and I'm not just talking about the natural environment, I'm talking about the cultural environment as well. So that will involve a lot of community engagement with those cultures, with our neighbors in Battle Creek. And so, you know, Ted talks about this is not a project that you're going to see happen in 3 years. This is a project that's out there, but I think what we've always said as an administration here and what our commissioners have challenged us with is don't be afraid to ask the questions and have the conversation. You know, that will determine how we move forward in partnership with our elected officials on that particular project. I hope that answered question number 2. Okay.
Yeah, and I think that we do appreciate the awareness that the question raises around engagement with minority or African American communities in Battle Creek as well as with the tribe. And I don't know that we have the answer, the full answer to that today, but it is easy to kind of get lost in the kind of the engineering and technical side of river restoration and forget about the community engagement side of it. But this process as it plays out, as it's required through the grant funding processes that we want to use to get some of this project done, you know, will emphasize engagement. And those are important conversations, as the city manager said, that we're going to need to have about, you know, river restoration beyond just the environmental aspects and the recreational aspects of that project.
Can I add a few more things, Commissioner Gray? I think the other thing we've done as a staff is, you know, there's a lot of the history in Battle Creek that not all of us had. So we're taking the time as a staff to understand the stories that we're hearing about the bottoms. And what that, you know, the displacement of the people in the bottoms, a very vibrant neighborhood because of some actions taken by, you know, government. And so what does that mean? And in some ways, the conversations we've been having about the river naturalization project is it's an opportunity to restore those neighborhoods if we're able to remove the concrete channels. And as we were talking about, reconnect the neighbors on that side of the river to the river and to downtown. Here we're talking about those hubs and spokes again. We want to make sure that they're connected back to the core downtown and other areas in our community. So we're hoping that this is an opportunity to at least partly identify the fact that, you know, the concrete channels created a negative impact. So what can we do to create a positive impact going forward?
Excellent. So kind of staying along the lines of our women and minority-owned businesses, there's a question relating to the Economic Development Fund, asking different questions about some statistics around how funds and support have been administered. So we have the first question: how many people or businesses have applied for the funds, giving demographic information around female, white female, persons of color, Black, Latinx, et cetera. Are we keeping statistics like that? How many have received funds? And I'm imagining this is something that you might not have here, but you might be able to kind of direct them as far as where that information can be found. And then how does the application process overcome barriers produced by systemic racism? If it does not address these barriers, and systemic misogyny, if it doesn't address these barriers, then how is it to benefit women and people of color?
So I believe you're referring to the Real Estate Improvement Fund?
It just simply asks for, says about women and minority-owned businesses development fund, so it doesn't have any specific name.
I guess I'll address it, a portion of it, and then others can chime in. On the Real Estate Improvement Fund that we've got the grant dollars from the Kellogg Foundation, I can tell you that of the 4 charitability requirements that it meets, that needs to meet that is affordable housing, jobs for a population come from low-mod individuals, women and minority-owned businesses, and historical preservation. I can say we've got, I think I said nearly a dozen applicants, and I would say a majority of those applicants are from the women and minority-owned business pool, And yes, we are tracking that data. That data is going to be lagging, obviously. We're still in the grant awardal phase, so we're developing grant agreements with these individuals so that they will actually, after receiving these funds, they'll actually share the data with us so that we can report on it as the funds are dispersed.
Yeah,
Excellent.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and we've tried to be very intentional about our work in that area as well. You know, when you were looking at the slide a little bit earlier, some of our technical assistance, for example, is very targeted towards African American and minority-owned businesses. Our Sister in Business program, for example, exclusively serves that audience. And I think that, I mean, we still have some work to do, but by being very intentional in our outreach to try to engage those communities is, I think, the best way, at least the most effective way that we've determined so far to be able to overcome some of those barriers. And we do track that data. And I would, as Joe mentioned too, I would say, you know, a large percentage of the folks that we work with through our small business team are minority and female-owned businesses.
We'll also add too that we administer the Direct Investment Fund on behalf of the city of Battle Creek, and we do have a ratio of dollars that are set aside for women and minority-owned businesses, and we do have active loans that are out there, so we're tracking that as well.
Excellent, thank you. I think we have 2 questions from the audience. I saw somebody trying to get up, and I see Kathy standing up now. So if you want to move Ms. Antea to the mic and ask your question.
Excuse me. Thank you. That was my question, and what I was really trying to get at, I think you mentioned the Women and Minority-Owned Business Fund earlier in your presentation. What I was really trying to get at by asking those questions is, what processes are the women and the minorities, or the people of color, I should say, I hate the word minority, because those folks really, people of color aren't minority in our world. What types of processes are you creating to reduce the systemic barriers that have prevented women and people of color from doing entrepreneurial activities and for creating businesses? So that's the whole point. If you've got this wonderful fund, which I'm delighted that we have, how does that actually remove those barriers that have prevented these folks from receiving those kinds of funds in the past?
Thank you for that clarity.
I would just say with some of the programs that we're running, what we're doing is we're taking those programs to the communities. So, for instance, the Sisters in Business program. We're also engaging in piloting some classes. We do some business training classes now, and we have at least one case where there was a language barrier. And so we're adapting this next round so that we can get a translator and then conduct another series of classes. So whether, you know, we have to figure out, we have to meet the communities where they're at. And so basically what we're doing is we're putting our programs out, being very intentional. We learn as we go. A lot of these are pilot projects, and if we see there's a barrier that we weren't aware of in the past, and when we set up the program, we will alter the program so that we can address that barrier. So we're doing it class by class by class. And for instance, it was a Burmese situation that we were working with a client, and we were working that out so we can have a translator. So that's one example of how we're doing it. Sisters in Business is another example.
And if I could also speak to Kathy's question, this is really a journey because most of these funds were created because we heard that we had gaps in our community, not only access to capital, but gaps to for people of color to access capital. And you're right, we are creatures of local government, so we're the top of when we talk about bureaucratic red tape, we basically invented it in government. And so what we're trying to do on our journey is learn how to unravel that. And what John said is right. What we're finding is it's that we don't get to unravel it. We need to talk with the communities and bring our information to the communities and figure out how we can modify to meet those needs or to break down those particular barriers. And we are learning. We're learning that it's small community conversations. It's taking our application process to our community to say, so show me how you would go through this, that was a prime way for us to realize that we had some work to do. And as I shared with you, we are, we're new at some of this, especially with live translation, live interpretation. And so it certainly is a directive of the commission to administration that we're working very closely with all our communities of color to get better. And I also wanted to say, we have a host of wonderful partners in the backs of the room, and they're also learning with us and have adapted some of their programs and projects and communication. So if any of you want to speak up during these times, please come up to the microphone, because we know we can't do this by ourselves, and we know you're doing a wonderful amount of work helping us engage our community of colors and really reducing the barriers that we have put in place historically.
Well, that leads me to another question as you stand up. From Facebook Live, what tourist attractions do we offer? And we actually have our Calhoun Visitors Bureau back there. So I'm going to call on them right now just to stand up and wave so people know. But I am a certified tourist ambassador. Woohoo! A CTA. And they have that program, and I know there's some CTAs. Who are the CTAs in the room right now? All right. We have a few. So if you want to learn more about that program, you are going to be, those individuals are able to just talk for hours about the tourist attractions we have to offer, but the Calhoun Visitor Bureau offers that program, so make sure you see them if you're interested. Ma'am, your question.
Hello, my name is Christy Barta, and my question is researching and studying different cities that are thriving, Grand Rapids, Kalamazoo, Detroit, and that have rebuilt their downtowns. It does seem that a lot of them, or actually all of them, have sporting events down in their downtown. And I understand we aren't the Detroit Lions or the Detroit Tigers. So my question is, has Battle Creek ever thought about relocating Bailey Park to the downtown area? I just played a softball tournament out there, and really, I feel it would bring a lot of life to the downtown area. And my second part of my question that's kind of unrelated is I'm just curious what's happening with the old Kmart building. And maybe you addressed that. We were a little late, but maybe you addressed that already. So,
thank you.
Right, we don't have the Detroit Lions, but we have some really cool things. We have roller derby, but we also have a couple of hockey teams coming into to our ice arena downtown. But we are also looking at how do we rethink the Kellogg Arena. It is a wonderful asset in our downtown that brings in a lot of sporting tournament type events to the downtown, but not necessarily that they're competing. They're coming to play at Bailey out kind of in the outer parts of the city, or they're they're in other venues. So we are thinking about that differently, but you're right. And you're not the first person to say, could we find a place for a stadium in downtown? And we always, we're always thinking about that and looking into that. You had a second part of your question. Okay, so we get that question a lot. So yes, we have a vacant Kmart facility in our downtown. And we are looking at all the redevelopment opportunities for that. It is certainly not owned by the city at this time. It is still wrapped up in the Kmart process and that world. But we would love to be able to see redevelopment on that particular site. It's once in a lifetime when you can get redevelopment on a river that you'd love to see more broadly naturalized and used as recreational purposes. So we are constantly looking at and reimagining what that might look like. Right now we aren't in an ownership position, so we are just reimagining, but we hope that would become a great mixed-use redevelopment area sometime in our near future. Fair enough, panel?
Thank you. Thank you for that answer. And I think we're going to hear from the Visitors Bureau today.
Hello. I just wanted to first address that question. We just released a study today about the impact of sports here in Calhoun County. Last year we had over 54 events and almost 100 million visitors to our county, all due to amateur sports. So things like you went to at Bailey Park and all the various events we have down at Kellogg Arena, from wrestling to arm wrestling to just a variety of things. Gymnastics is another sporting event that we have there, dance competitions, all kinds of things that are going on. So, so they are filling our hotels. If you go, try to get a hotel on many weekends in our summer when we have baseball and softball tournaments going on, you're going to find that we have sold-out weekends here in town. So we certainly recognize the impact of sports here in town. So thanks for your question.
Thanks for pointing that out. I just wanted to remind everyone, we have about 5 more minutes left for our Q&A segment, and then we're going to go into public comments. I see a hand back there, so as you make your way to the mic, I have this one additional question, just because I love food, I'm a foodie. How can we attract better cuisine and businesses that stay open later? It seems like our town sleeps after 9 p.m.
I think you've seen some great responses to the RFPs out of BCU. That's a lot of acronyms, RFPs out of BCU. And it's brought different ways to think about restaurants and foods. And there's a lot of foodies in this particular community, and we just need those foodies to be vocal. And I think Eric Stewart said it best. Get down and patronize the food that we have, because the more people we have downtown, the more it will grow. And so we're seeing a lot of interest in Battle Creek, and a lot of it is around restaurants and food. And I think Joe even said it, we're kind of a food town.
We are. I'm going to play off of what you just said and what Eric said. I can tell you, as a community, something that we can do, and I'm going to just talk from the New Holland case study because that's what I know. When New Holland enters this market, there is a lot of eyes on New Holland. We've talked to other restaurateurs, others in the industry, and really, in a long time, we haven't had something of that caliber decide to go to Battle Creek. They've always gone to Kalamazoo, they've skipped over Battle Creek. So the real question out there in the restaurant industry, in the beverage industry, in the entertainment industry, what kind of numbers are they going to put up? New Holland's going to put up good numbers, but if they put up astronomical numbers, others will follow. That's where we have to do our part and patronize our companies.
Thank you. Did you have one piece to add to that?
I just wanted to make...
Quickly.
Yep, quickly, one point. And that's when we talked about why downtown, that was a question earlier. So the downtown is kind of this crown jewel where everyone feels welcome. When you go to a community, you talk about the downtown. It's also about critical mass. So when we add all the housing downtown and the restaurants and everyone can come there, they're going to expect that it's open at night. And with the arena, the other questions that Christy asked, as we do the climbing gym, as we hopefully do the whitewater rafting, these are all going to be critical points of convergence of people coming down and staying later and living downtown. So it's all of that together which will ultimately create this.
Well, Mr. Newman has our last question. We actually have several more questions to get to that we did not get to tonight, but we appreciate your participation. I believe we are going to try and take all of these questions and still answer them and post them on the city's website. So all is not lost. You will see an answer to your question on our website. So Mr. Newman, your final question.
Thank you. So my question's for the city. Downtown, as a downtown business owner, and talking to other downtown business owners, one of the top complaints is the parking. Not the quantity, I think we do have quite a bit of parking, but it's kind of the allocation of it, the parking tickets, there's some confusions on certain lots from, we've had high school kids struggle with it, to other professional businesses, clients, all of our tenants have had it. There's even been questions with the mayor on parking of where it goes where. So is there anything we can do to kind of clarify maybe a little bit better, some better signage? And is there anything we can do to increase the 2-hour limit? I know for a lot of the businesses here, they'd like to see that longer, but yet still somehow discourage people that work there from taking all the valuable spots. Thank you.
I'm gonna let John address some of this because he actually sits on the parking committee. We do have a dedicated parking committee that works specifically on these issues. And Cody, you just had to go there on parking, didn't you? So we recognize as the downtown becomes more vibrant too, that one of the critical issues that we have to deal with to continue to gain momentum is dealing with parking in a downtown, which is never an easy challenge. We've got folks that would like to see the 2-hour limit longer. We've got folks that would like to see that cut in half to accomplish just what you mentioned, which is this idea of how do we make it a great place for customers to visit, but yet it's still a viable place for employees to come and work every day. And so there are a variety of things that are going on to try to address some of those issues. But before John jumps in, I just want to say it is a learning process, no doubt about it. You know, we haven't seen the kind of vibrancy in the downtown that we're going to see over the next few years. So we're going to sort this out together as a downtown business community and as a community as, you know, as a whole.
So what I always like to lead with is we have parking issues, not problems. So, I mean, we can solve some of these things, and people are looking at them at a yearly basis. You have a lot of advocates in the room who would like to see some changes, but we try to do it in a way that's not very disruptive, because what we've learned is that if you don't do it correctly, then you're going to have sort of workers taking all the spots, and there won't be anything left for your clients, so, and the people who frequent downtown. One of the things that you're going to hear a pilot project come out is using a mobile application where you can extend time. So part of the problem with just reducing or creating 3-hour, 4-hour spots is that people will manipulate the system, and then we won't have any control, and folks will just, workers will then come back in and park in the spots because you can't actually do the patrols that you need to do in the enforcement. But if we allow people to get a couple hours free and then extend their time for a couple hours without a ticket or fear of getting a ticket, that probably will work. So we're going to do a pilot project, and it's going to be on Michigan Avenue, Riverwalk, and on State Street. So we'll try that. We'll see if that frees it up a little bit. And of course, we're always sort of working on our parking structures. There's even going to be some slight tweaks here soon that will probably show some change on Hamlin Avenue, some more 2-hour parking, which will free up for Festival Market Square. We're just going to have to keep massaging and moving with it. There's also some plans for another garage when we can afford it. So stay tuned, keep talking about it. Sounds like we might need to put a couple more folks on our committee, so. Yeah.
Thank you, and I'll just invite you to begin working on your evaluation if you haven't already done so, and I'll turn it over to the mayor for public comments.
At this period of time, if you have any public comment, feel free to come forward. Seeing none, I'm going to turn it over to the vice mayor. I'm sorry, Sue.
Sorry. This has been a really wonderful seminar, whatever. I don't have a question that I would expect an answer for tonight or even thoughts about, but I'm really troubled by the fact that the city is going to purchase the motel that's near Horrocks, that a lot of homeless people stay in when they have enough money for a couple nights in a hotel. I know there've been problems there. I know there've been hundreds of police calls. But if those people are still living in the community somewhere, there's still going to be police calls. They'll just be in random locations all over the city. I don't think that's going to solve the police department's problems that they would like to see solved. And it really kind of breaks my heart. I don't know if that's going to be torn down, is it?
So what we're going to do, what we'll
Okay.
do is I'll have the city manager respond to you in writing.
Okay.
And that's a very important question. I think that's the best way to handle that.
Okay.
Just make sure we have your contact information, so if you could put that on a card so that we can respond.
I'll make sure somebody does that for you. The other thing I'd like to say, when there are a whole lot of people here, is that I worked for several years at Ministry with Community in Kalamazoo.
Time is up, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Thanks.
You should go and visit it.
Good evening, my name's Hugh Coward. I'm president of West Michigan Construction Alliance. I sit on Battle Creek Unlimited Board. I just want to thank everybody for their time tonight. I think this forum for the public was good. I just want to emphasize the importance of those construction dollars when it comes to economic impact. Those aren't temporary jobs, they're good paying jobs. With all the companies you've got downtown that are good quality construction companies, CSC, Morris, Schweitzer, Union Electric, Motor Shop, Scholdice Brothers, all those people are taxpayers, and we hope that you could support those contractors. And I just want to throw a plug in for my partners, Michigan Works, we're going to be starting a program, Vision for Prosperity, to put 16 to 20 people to work in apprenticeship programs. First meeting's tomorrow night at Parkway Manor. It all plays into good paying jobs and economic development in Battle Creek. And again, I thank you for your time.
My name is Mr. Clark, and I'm getting ready. I'm trying to get a building, open up the Hope Center for the homeless. I'm right here representing the homeless, you know. We need to get them off the street and get them on jobs, skill, training, and stuff like that. That's what I'm trying to do. Either I'm gonna move it to Kalamazoo, you know. I'm trying to get a building, and I called the city commission. They haven't called me back yet. It's been about 2 months now.
All right. You're going to get an answer. If you could just stick around afterwards, we'll get your name and number, and I'll make sure someone gets back to you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Jill Anderson, and tonight I'm going to speak for the trees a little bit since we haven't heard any environmental goodness. Just real quickly, remember there was that casino movement? Well, tonight I want to start the Mesquite No movement against mosquitoes. I think the spraying is a very bad idea. I know it's above your pay grade probably where that decision is made, but I know there are some people among you who are against the problems that could come along with mosquito spraying. So I just wanted to bring that up tonight to make sure that something got said. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other public comments? Yes, ma'am.
Dr. Sharon Yaskolski. And something that I've sat in on a lot of meetings over the last several years in Battle Creek. And one thing that I can speak well for is that the employers, the large employers who have been in meetings with me, don't show the concern for the core population of Battle Creek. When you have a CEO who sits in a meeting and says that they're dragging the bottom of the barrel for employees in this community, that doesn't make the community members feel good. And there are two things that one can do. Wraparound services. One is the Employer Resource Network. That's within the companies. A couple did that in the Fort Custer. Most have not. There's another one that I've just learned about with Kalamazoo's Open Door, and that's a wraparound in living situations. They have a 50-year history with over 100 units and a very successful program, which needs to be looked at. There are lots of things happening that are great that Battle Creek would benefit by with minimal effort. But what you're not getting involvement in jobs because the employers are not saying, we care about you, we value you. And that goes against their industrial training in Six Sigma, total quality management, and the Drucker philosophy. So if you don't have that, why should we work for you? That's a problem.
Thank you for your comment. One more time, any other additional comments? Seeing none, I'm going to turn it over to the Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you to staff for all of your work in putting this together. Thank you to our panelists, to our individuals that offered testimonials, and most of all, thank you to you for being here this evening, for joining us on Facebook Live. Access Vision is recording this, and we will share the broadcast dates once we have those. We've received some excellent feedback tonight, and we appreciate hearing from you. If you have questions that weren't answered, staff will be following up and posting all of the questions and answers on the city's websites with links on our social media. Please be sure to visit all of our resource booths. There are economic development partners, and they have great information to share about their services. A very wise man who's standing in the back of the room holding his secret weapon, made a comment to me over the summer, and it's something that's really stuck with me. And it was a different setting, but I believe that the message is applicable here tonight. You know, you may have come in not knowing one another. You may not have known about some of the services that were available, but I think if you work with, we work with our neighbors and we work with some of our community partners, we can be successful. Battle Creek is, I think, on an upward trajectory, and I think that tonight that message came through loud and clear. Please remember to fill out your evaluations, and we hope to use this information to plan future events. Please feel free to be in contact with any of your city commissioners. Contact information is available on the city's website and in the back of the room. Please be in touch with our service providers that are here this evening. Thank you again for coming, and have a great evening.
Please make sure you get something to eat, too. Thank you. One last polling question. If you still got your apps up, we really need the answers to this one.